I would like to introduce our first speaker of the day. Hi, I can see Olivia there, and I can see Professor Manuel there. So yes, and I can see Dima if she put on. I can start seeing the faces, so quite familiar faces, and some Abdullah I can see there. So I think it will be very good. So I am quite keen on the time. I have taken more than my time, but I always take the risk of the first speaker. So I will take all the trouble of the stress of the internet and all them. But I can see Professor Manuel Frutos-Perez. Professor Manuel, I think by the way, all the CVs and the bios of all those speakers are available online. So if you want to know any more about any of the speakers, you don't need to worry now. And we're not going to spend too much time introducing them. They are available in our website. But Professor Manuel, if I can just introduce him in Kabul, he's a leading international scholar, academically and professionally. So theory to practice, I think he's one of the people, if you allow me, Professor Manuel, to say that, he's one of the professor I can confidently put hands on hand saying he is a professor who can really take you from, he can show you how the applications of the theory on the textbook. He's a distinguished professor. He's going to talk to us about a very important topic, which is learning, digital learnings, online learnings. But I think Professor Manuel is going to take us beyond that, just learning in the classroom. But as you may have seen, governments, even our Prime Minister, before even he got the coronavirus, he was running his own meetings from his Downing Street. All the ministers are across the country. You have seen our parliament, and that's what I think we need to learn about. It's not just about us in the classroom teaching our students. So Manuel, because I have taken lots of the time where I could have introduced you, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for taking the time. And also, I know you're the first starter of the day. So the floor is yours, and I will hand over. I think the people who are doing the technical, they will now switch me off, and it's all yours, Professor Manuel.
That's great. Thank you so much, Professor Alam. It's great to be here. Really, really good to be here. Right now from a very sunny morning in Bristol in the UK. Greetings to everyone, wherever you're based and whatever time of the day is for yourselves. I think it's been more important than ever to share our knowledge, our insights, our experiences across the world. Because one of the things that this pandemic has brought about is the need for all of us to work together for a better world. And I think the WAST Forum is a particularly important place for that, because your ambitions and your ethos is all about sustainable development across the world is really, really important today. And the pandemic has shown us that is crucial for the development of human beings. So my presentation today is about online education. Thank you, Professor Alam, for the excellent introduction to the conference and also for your generous introduction to myself. Let me share my screen so you can start seeing my slides. One moment. So hopefully you can now see my slides. Unless I hear from the conveners, I will assume that you can see my slides. So yes, I'm Manuel Frutos-Perez. I am the Director of Business Development at Cambridge Education Group, and I'll tell you a bit about what we do there. I'm also a visiting professor in digital learning at the University of the West of England here in the UK, but I have worked for quite a number of universities over my professional life, both in the UK and in Europe. And most of that career has been in distance, distributed, and lately online education. So very, very quickly, first about what we do at Cambridge Education Group, because it's relevant to the presentation today. We work with universities to help them develop online programs of study. Most of those programs are in postgraduate education. We now have got 6 partners in the UK. Together with them, we have got about 40 different programs. Most of those are full master's courses that are delivered fully online across the world. We recruit students from across the world onto those programs. They're fully online, so anybody can join. Our students come from over 75 different countries. And we're very proud of that. We're very proud of the diversity that is present in our cohorts. And very importantly, our retention rates go above 90%. That has always been something really key to our model. We don't believe in mass low quality education, which has been a problem for a lot of online initiatives over the past 10 years. And we believe that online education should be of the highest quality possible, and it should be a quality that is comparable to what a student would get on campus. As you can see there, we have over 2,000 students now, postgraduate students across our partnerships. And so that number has almost doubled over the last 12 months only. So rapid expansion of our reach, which is great, but we are maintaining those retention rates as we are doing this. So that's a quick overview of what we do. It's relevant for the presentation today. The first thing I wanted to discuss with you are some key issues that we have seen in education over the last few years, but they have become more relevant through this public health crisis that is gripping the world at the moment. And the first one is about resilience. Our education systems have shown, unfortunately, that they were not resilient enough during this crisis. The education of millions of students at all levels has been disrupted by this crisis. So what it has shown is that we were not ready for something like this. We were not ready for a situation where physical locations had to be locked down. But here's the thought, of all those 2,000 students that I mentioned we have across our partnerships, not a single one of them had their education disrupted through this period. Their family life was disrupted, their work life was disrupted, their education wasn't. Online education of good quality has shown to be extremely resilient in this case. So that's just one thought to leave there for a bit later in the presentation. Another one is sustainability. You know, international education is great. It brings people from different parts of the world together to study together. It brings all those perspectives into the learning process. In my experience as an academic, it is always better to have a wide variety of students in a classroom. It produces a much better learning environment. So international education is really positive, but it is often not very sustainable. It involves a lot of traveling, it involves plane travel, accommodation, and so on. It's not a sustainable model of education. On the other hand, online education is. You don't have to get people traveling around. You don't have to build new buildings. You don't have to accommodate for those people. They all stay in place, but they still working together. So it is inherently sustainable. Another important issue that I think is becoming more important than ever at the moment is knowledge diplomacy. We, for too long at universities, are used to pushing our theories onto the rest of the world and trying to encourage people to think in the same way that we think. A lot of academics know that that is not the right way of educating our population. We need to make sure that all the different points of view get into the education system, that the curriculum is one that is rich in different voices that come from different parts of the world. Again, it's difficult to do that if you are running your education in your cohorts from one single physical geographical location. It is a lot easier to do if your cohort is varied, but they're all dispersed. They're all in different locations because they bring the different perspectives into the learning process. So knowledge diplomacy, something important to consider as well. Next one, inclusivity. You know, one of the great things about online education and before online education, when I was working in distance learning back 20 years ago, one of the very great things I've always experienced as an academic in the field is the widening participation that happens when you run education at a distance and you run it in a high quality way, making sure the students get the support they need. You immediately widen the net and give access to the education to lots of people who before probably wouldn't have access to it for a number of reasons. It could be a physical disability, it could be a special educational need, it could be family reasons, work reasons. When you run education in a flexible way, you actually making possible for lots of other people to join the education system. And that's something really positive. That's something that every society would benefit from. And last one, but not least, is talent retention. You know, one of the things, as someone who has worked in an international education for a very long time, one of the things that has become very obvious to me is that when we run international cohorts in a single physical geographical location, one of the issues with that is that you are bringing all those talented students from other countries. You're taking them away from those societies where they were before. You're taking away probably the best students. And in a sustainable development mindset, you really don't want to do that. You want them to stay where they are. These are very talented people who you are developing. You want them to stay there and make a difference where they come from. So talent retention becomes really important, because if you can run high quality education in a way that you keep people where they come from, actually the impact, the positive impact to their societies will be a lot higher than if you made them travel across the world and you educate them over there. Their original societies will lose that talent for either temporarily, partially, or forever. So it's very important element to consider as well. So that's my food for thought, some ideas, some insights, some things that I have experienced working in this field. Let's move on to what do I mean by high quality online education? Well, there are a number of things that that determine the quality of any education that you provide to your students. And this applies to online learning, just it applies to everything else that we should do as educators. A good education should be active. Learning is an active process. It's not something that you sit back and you receive information. It should be active. You are developing as a person when you're learning, so you should be part of an active process doing this. A good education should be social. It should be a social event. We are social animals, human beings. We learn best when we are working in groups. So any type of good quality education should do that, whether it's online, whether it's face-to-face. So that is sometimes harder to implement when you are running online education. And that's why it should be at the forefront of our thoughts when we are developing online programs. We need to develop a learning experience that is very social and is very active. Diversity, any good type of education should be diverse. So the variety of activities that you give your students to do should be as diverse as possible. Everybody learns in different ways, and you should be able to provide a wide variety of activities so that all of your students can engage with the learning process. It should be relevant. We shouldn't be designing courses that we design them today and we expect them to stay like this for years. That's not serving the purposes that we need on quality education for our students. Because education should be relevant, the world is changing continuously. This health crisis that we're living through has demonstrated that things that we assumed about global public health last year are no longer valid or are no longer accurate, and we have to change the way we teach our students. So all education should be relevant. In online education, what that means is that we should be revising our curriculum continuously, making sure that the content of the curriculum is relevant to our students, making sure that there is a good connection between the curriculum and the employment market, because we know that one of the key drivers of education, particularly at postgraduate level, is employability and career development. So we need to make sure that the curriculum is actually matching the jobs market and what firms need people to be able to do today and what firms need and going to need to be able people to be able to do in the near future. Good education should also be challenging. It shouldn't be easy, particularly at postgraduate level. You want to challenge and stretch these students. They're normally very talented students, as I mentioned, so you really want to stretch them as much as you can, challenge them, making sure that they're continuously being stretched and they become the best professionals that they can be. And last but really not least, fully supported. You really want to support the students properly. A good education is one where you support your students as much as you can, and you make sure that they are not going to fail. You make sure that they can succeed. And this is one of the things that very often gets missed out in online and distributed education. There's this assumption that you can have many more students on online programs, which is true. You can have much larger cohorts, but that doesn't mean they're going to need less support. They're going to need just as much support as students on your campus, or even more. So you should provide all the support they're going to need. It's not only academic support, they're going to need pastoral support, financial support, mental health support, all of those services that are normally available to them on campus. You need to make sure that they have access to them through the online education you're providing to them as well. So that's something that needs to be actively considered by institutions. How do we support our students properly? So those are the elements I think that any good quality education should have, that they become even more crucial for online education, because some of those elements, they're very easy to miss out on when you are designing a program. You need to make sure that you are paying attention to all of those things when you're designing online education. So how do I think these links? Good quality education and sustainable development. Professor Alam already referred to this at the beginning, you know, that link between the global and the local, really, really important. First thing that I think we should all commit to is no compromise on quality. Online education should be just as good as campus-based education. We should make sure that when we design online programs of study, they are just as good as the ones that we have on campus, and the support we provide to the students should be just as good. Resilient and pervasive. This is something that online education can really measure on, because as I said at the beginning, what this crisis has proven to us is that online education, if it's well designed, is extremely resilient. It can survive without major disruption, even a global pandemic that we are going through at the moment. Pervasiveness, you can reach every corner of the world. If you provide good quality education, you can recruit students from everywhere. You can make sure that everyone who can and who wants to can have access to this education you are providing. And also really important, you know, in recent months, we've seen with the Black Lives Matter movement, there is a lot of debate across the world, not just here in the UK and other Western countries. Across the world, we've seen a lot of debates about how do we make sure that we engage with our past? How do we make sure that we're not still putting forward very old ideas about equality and making sure that everybody has got a voice? Again, online education has got a lot of power to deal with this issue, because as I mentioned at the beginning, when you have got an international cohort and they're all still based where they come from, you create a really rich learning environment where everybody talks, where everybody debates the issues with the same voice, and everybody can bring their own context and their own examples of how theories have been put into practice. This creates a very rich environment that is very easily to be decolonized in terms of a curriculum perspective. Again, online education can really help us in this area. And before I finish, I want to leave you with a quote from one of our current students, and this is Sah Bar. He's based in China. He's studying an MA, a master's course in creative writing with the University of Hull, who we are working with at the moment. And he left that comment as feedback on his experience. And I think it really encapsulates the issues I wanted to present to you today. He's saying there, what I love about this course is that we're all working together as a family. We're supporting each other. We're giving constructive and honest feedback from which we all benefit. That is a fantastic piece of feedback. When you think about this, this is coming from an online student. He is studying online full-time, which means he has got no physical contact with any other students or with the teaching team. But that comment, when you read it, it really tells you there is a real relationship that has been built between this student and the rest of the cohort, between this student and the institution and the teaching team. This is what I mean by high quality online education. This is an education that is delivering the same level of quality as you would find on campus. And this is what I think we should be aiming for. Thank you very much for your attention. I think I am just a little bit over the time. Very happy to answer any questions you might have. You can contact me after the conference as well if you have any questions. Always happy to talk to colleagues across the world. Thank you.
A question of 2 bars, very important to you, because many people from the first time you have given that talk in your global debate. By the way, thank you very much again for taking part in the global debate as well. And by the way, there's another lengthy debate where Professor Manuel with 2 other professors was talking on one of our global debate for the conference. Professors, there are 2 questions really critical now. Most vice chancellors now in the UK, I can talk about the UK, most of them now are really struggling because they can see clearly in 2 months' time, we have a reduction between 20 to 30% on our home students dropping, number one. And some of them are seeing 50 to 70% drop in the international number of students coming to us. And that's quite a serious one. Most universities are now talking about something between 3.5, 4 million, up to 7 million drop in income. Most universities, I have seen that, they are getting rid of people. They have to compromise in this department. We need to get 2 or 3 of them. Now, but more important, relating to your talk, which is quite important, now many universities have now pushed and they are trying to train us, academic, as quick as possible to deliver with the quality you're talking to. Although they're not really talking about the high quality, or of course they are, but they want to make sure we can really deliver reasonably good on the web. So to what extent do you see yourself as an academic, and also you are a professor at the university as well, to what extent you think we have been very late in coaching and training academic staff to deliver? To what extent you think we have been too late in preparing our staff to deliver? Let alone the quality you are talking about it. And also the quality you are talking about it. Is it expensive, Manuel? It is something now we can easily, because I know this question will come to me tomorrow through the chat. Is it something you can easily coach people, deliver it to universities, not just necessarily in the UK, because how quickly we can deliver with the quality you're referring to, and how expensive, not just this maybe personal question to you and the team you're leading, but generally, are we talking about a very expensive technology and application and concepts, taking into account we are now sacking people because we don't have income?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, those are excellent questions, Alam. And the number of issues there. The first question, are most universities late into this game? The answer is yes. You know, the crisis has shown it. Universities have done their best, to be fair to them, particularly to be fair to university staff. When the crisis happened, they did their best to try to make sure that the rest of the academic year could be saved for the students. And it was a really good effort, but it also showed that they were not ready. Universities were not resilient enough. The education of students was disrupted right across the board. There is no question about it. the only students, as I mentioned in my presentation, that did not see their education disrupted were the online students, where the programs that were already set up for this, they had been set up way before the crisis happened. All the support mechanisms were in place, and they just carried on. But it's not just about the fact that those programs were being delivered already, is the fact that there is an inherent flexibility in online learning when you do it well. So because those students, the students that we have, they saw their family life disrupted and they saw their work pattern disrupted too. And because the education we're providing to them is flexible, they could carry on with it. So it's not only that the education was being delivered still, but also that it's inherently flexible. Our students can decide every week how they organize their time. They can move and shift the pattern of work online during any given week. So that really gave them the resilience that they needed at this time of crisis. So yes, universities are late, and nothing is going to get solved for this September. You know, everybody's thinking, oh, you know, new academic year comes September, everything is going to be fine. No, it does not. It's not going to be fine. There is not enough work that has been done for this coming academic year to resist a new wave of the pandemic. So my message to colleagues across universities and in my discussions with many executive teams of different universities is, you don't have any time to lose. You're not ready for this September. Start working towards next September. You know, September 21. If you start working now, by September 21, you will be in a very good, resilient place. But you need to start working now. This cannot be done overnight. Yes, poor quality online education can be done very quickly. But is that what you want? You want to replace what was working really well on campus? Do you want to replace that with something very low quality online that is going to undermine the impression that people have about online education? Because let's face it, anybody who hasn't done any online learning before, they are going to be presented with this. So if we don't offer them quality to begin with, everybody's going to think, well, actually online learning doesn't work. You know, this is not working for me. And it's not that online learning doesn't work, it's that poor quality education doesn't work. We all know that. It doesn't work on campus, it doesn't work online. So if we really want to put our institutions in a way that is resilient for any future crisis, we need to start working now, and we'll start working seriously. And to the question about financing, that's really important, Alan. When I discuss our engagement with vice chancellors, that always comes up. You know, how much is this going to cost me? And it's very simple. This is not going to cost you more than what you do on campus. It's not going to cost you less either. It all goes back to quality. If you are spending X amount of money developing and setting up and delivering a good quality program on campus, you cannot expect that you can move that online and it's going to be cheaper. There is no reason why it should be cheaper, because you still need all the support that you have on campus online to make it work well. The advantage, though, is that when you move provision online, you can grow really fast. And that's the advantage it gives you. It gives you more return for your investment, but the investment needs to be there. But it will allow you to grow student numbers really fast. It will grow the reputation of your institution if you're delivering quality. So it will also attract more students onto campus if you're delivering good quality online, because it grows the name of your institution. So lots of benefits, but investment is required. And in that question of investment, universities are saying, okay, yeah, we understand the concept of you need to invest to get quality, but right now we can do it. Well, this is a time when the private sector really should collaborate with the public sector. This is the time when we all need to come together and work together. And that's what we do at Cambridge Education Group. We provide funding to universities, and then we recoup that funding once we get the revenues in from student fees. It's a good model that can work. This is a time, like I said, for collaboration between the private sector and the public sector to make sure that we all together come out of this crisis better.
Professor, sorry to interrupt you. So just this is quite important. I know it will excite many people. So the model you have at Cambridge Group, you provide the funding and the technology and the application for the university upfront with an agreement once they recruited the students, because that's where the university involved. You're not involved in the recruitment, then that cost will be paid back.
Yeah, so there are quite a number of models that we use. Every partnership is different. Every institution has got different requirements, but the concept is that what the private sector can do in a situation like this is we can bring additional funding into the picture, and then we can decide, how that funding gets repaid. So yes, at a high level, you can say yes. What the private sector can do is bring investment up front, and then through the contract, you can decide how that investment gets repaid. That's what the private sector can provide. That obviously, I cannot say that's how we do in every partnership, because every partnership is different, but the concept that's how the private sector can help is one that I think needs to be explored further, because that's how universities can access additional funding at the time of crisis when they don't have it.
Okay, excellent. And Manuel, I'm going to go to Siham and then we finish, because I have promised people to give them at least 5 minutes break to have a coffee or anything. But so I will not come back to you. Just concluding word from you before I go to Siham. What are you, from your perspective, experience, you expecting will happen? Now, our Prime Minister here in the UK said by December, he's expecting us to have a nice Christmas and life will be back as normal. That's what he said a few days ago. What is your expectation in terms of your field, technology, digital learning? What do you expect the world will look like in the next, let's talk about the 5 months.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's an excellent question. And yes, our politicians, sometimes they tend to be very optimistic about things. And I've got nothing against optimism. I come from Spain originally, and we're a very optimistic culture. But as a scientist, as a data scientist, I don't see that rosy picture coming through. What we know from learning from past pandemics that the world has suffered is that they don't go away that quickly. There is always more than one wave. So we should assume that this is no different, that we are going to see a second wave. So that's the timing. But also, I think something more important than that is that people are misunderstanding the flow of education here. If you think about program of study, if it's an undergraduate program of study, you have your students with you for 3 years. If this September, as you mentioned before, there's going to be a drop in home students, there's going to be a massive drop in international students, those courses will not recover for another 3 or 4 years. That's what people are not talking about, is that the crisis is not just this September, because those are going to be, if you end up with very small cohorts, you're going to have to drag those small cohorts for 3 or 4 years. So the funding crisis will accumulate. Universities, if they don't take action now and they start preparing for a more resilient version of themselves in the future, this could be a financial crisis that's going to be with them for over a decade, because a poor recruitment in one September can create financial problems for many years after that, even if the crisis gets solved after that. Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you very much, Professor Manuel, as usual, very exciting, very inspiring, and thank you very much. I think what you have just explored is very, very important, Manuel, and I think we really need, and I'm sure we're going to have lots of discussion about this, because we really need to move very quickly. We have been approached by many, many organizations, and I can tell you what you have just said. And in one of my talks, I actually borrow your wording about the quality, and I keep saying to people, quality and excitement, because you can see I'm in my room here, how to excite me. And also the quality is very important. I think I'm going to introduce Dr. Siham, because she has been waiting for us quite late in New Zealand. And then we will come back and ask questions for both Professor Manuel and Dr. Siham. So Professor Manuel, thank you very much. Stay with us and I will come back to you in maybe 20 minutes. Or we will open it for questions. I know there's many questions, but let's bring Siham. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.